Vanessa Cole smiled before the music even started, and that was the moment the entire room made the biggest mistake of the night. It was not a loud smile. Not cruel enough to be called cruel by anyone who wanted to defend her later. It was small, polished, and almost friendly, the kind of expression people use when they are about to insult someone while pretending they are only trying to help. She stood near the center of the dance studio in an expensive white warm-up jacket, one arm folded across her waist, the other hand wrapped around a stainless steel water bottle with her initials engraved on the side. Around her, younger dancers stretched and watched her the way people watch someone who has already decided the rules of a room. If Vanessa laughed, they laughed. If Vanessa rolled her eyes, they rolled theirs a second later. If Vanessa decided someone did not belong, the room usually followed before that person had a chance to speak. The studio sat 3 floors above a busy downtown Chicago avenue, its tall windows streaked with rain and its mirrors reflecting every movement from every angle. Outside, headlights slid across the wet pavement in long silver lines. Inside, the hardwood floor shone beneath cold white lights, and the air smelled faintly of rosin, damp coats, and expensive perfume. Near the back wall stood a woman almost nobody noticed at first. Claire Bennett held the strap of an old, faded gym bag against her shoulder. She wore plain gray leggings, a loose sweatshirt, and soft black dance shoes that looked as if they had survived more years than most people in the room had been training. Her blonde-brown hair was tied low at the nape of her neck. She wore no bright makeup, no designer warm-up set, no expression carefully built for mirrors. She simply looked quiet. Too quiet, perhaps, for a studio where confidence often arrived before talent. Vanessa saw her through the mirror, tilted her head, and took 2 graceful steps toward the back of the room. "Hi," she said, her voice warm enough that several dancers looked over without immediately sensing danger. "You might want the wellness class downstairs. They do a slower floor routine on Thursdays." Claire looked up politely. "This is the advanced contemporary class, isn't it?" "It is," Vanessa said, still smiling. "That's why I mentioned it. This floor gets slippery, and Ethan doesn't slow down much. Those shoes might not grip well." A few dancers smiled into their water bottles. Someone near the windows looked down quickly, trying not to laugh. The insult had been wrapped so neatly in concern that anyone could pretend not to see it. Claire glanced at her own shoes, then back at Vanessa. "Thank you. I'll be careful." That was all she said. The calmness seemed to disappoint the room. Cruelty always prefers a reaction. It wants embarrassment, anger, a trembling voice, something it can point to as proof that it was right. Claire gave them none of that. She only moved a few steps farther toward the wall, giving the younger dancers more space. Ethan Brooks, the instructor, entered from a side office carrying a tablet and a towel. Tall, athletic, and sharp-eyed, Ethan had built a reputation as one of Chicago's toughest contemporary teachers. Dancers came to him because his students got callbacks, agency meetings, and sometimes national tours. His approval was not easy, which made people want it more. He scanned the attendance list, then noticed Claire. "You're new?" he asked. "Yes," Claire said. "Claire Bennett." Ethan looked at the tablet, then at her shoes, then at the old bag by her hip. The pause was brief, but the mirrors made brief things visible. "Advanced choreography can be intense," he said. "You sure you're in the right room?" Vanessa's smile deepened without moving much. Claire gave a small nod. "I'll try to keep up." A few people laughed softly. Not loudly. Not enough for Ethan to correct them. Just enough to make the room choose a side. Claire lowered her eyes for a moment, not in shame exactly, but as if she were remembering how familiar this kind of room could be. Bright lights, mirrors, young bodies trying to prove they belonged, older bodies being measured before they moved. She said nothing else. What nobody understood yet was that some people walk quietly into a room because they have nothing left to prove. And before the night was over, everyone who had mistaken Claire Bennett's silence for weakness would remember the sound of their own laughter with shame. Ethan clapped once. "Warm up. 5 minutes. Then we work." Music slipped through the ceiling speakers, low and steady, and the dancers spread across the floor with the practiced confidence of people used to being watched. Vanessa took the center without asking for it. No one challenged her. Claire stayed near the back mirror, setting her bag carefully against the wall before rolling her shoulders once beneath the loose fabric of her sweatshirt. The warm-up began with simple isolations, then deep bends, then traveling steps across the floor. Ethan moved between them, correcting small details. Lift through the spine. Do not throw the arms away. Vanessa, cleaner on the second count. Vanessa adjusted instantly and smiled when he nodded. She lived for that nod. Claire moved conservatively at first. She did not push her range or take more space than necessary. Her body seemed to be listening before it spoke. To the younger dancers, it looked like uncertainty. To Ethan, at first, it looked like caution. To Vanessa, it looked like confirmation. During a water break, Vanessa passed behind Claire and lowered her voice just enough to sound private while still being heard. Don't feel bad if you need to step out, she said. It happens. These classes look easier online. Claire unscrewed the cap of her water bottle. I appreciate the warning. Again, no argument. No defensiveness. Just that still, impossible politeness. Vanessa's smile tightened. All right, Ethan called. First phrase. Fast transitions. The count is not forgiving. If you lose timing, reset before you run into somebody. His eyes drifted toward Claire for half a second. Several dancers noticed. Ethan demonstrated the combination. A controlled reach, a sharp contraction, a traveling turn into a grounded slide, then a suspended pause that required the dancer to stop on a breath rather than a beat. It was not flashy, but it demanded control. The kind of control that exposes people. The class repeated it after him. Shoes whispered against the floor. Arms cut through the reflections. Bodies moved in and out of sync. Claire marked the phrase at half intensity. Claire, Ethan said, stopping the music. You're behind. A few eyes moved toward her in the mirror. Claire nodded. I'm still finding the timing. Vanessa gave an almost sympathetic little laugh. That's what the first floor is for. The room smiled because Vanessa had made it safe to smile. Ethan restarted the music. This time, Claire stepped into the opening count with more intention. She still did not dance fully, but something in her alignment changed. Her shoulders settled. Her spine lifted. Her feet found the floor without searching for it. She crossed into the turn with restraint, almost too much restraint, yet landed so cleanly that an older dancer near the side wall lowered her water bottle without realizing it. Her name was Marisol Vega, and unlike most people in the room, she had danced long enough to know the difference between someone copying movement and someone choosing not to reveal how much they knew. Marisol watched Claire's feet. The next time through, Claire marked the slide. Her hands remained soft, her breath even, her gaze low. But the stop after the turn landed exactly on the invisible edge of the count. Not early, not late. Suspended. Marisol frowned. Vanessa did not notice. She was too busy checking whether Ethan had seen her extension. Again, Ethan said. From the top. They repeated the phrase. Once. Twice. 3 times. The younger dancers began to sweat. The room warmed. Rain tapped the windows harder. Ethan's corrections sharpened as people got tired. Claire made one small mistake on the 4th run. Her right foot slipped half an inch as she came out of the slide, forcing her to catch herself with a quiet step. It was tiny, almost nothing, but Vanessa saw it. There it is, Vanessa murmured. 2 dancers laughed. Claire heard them. Her jaw tightened for the first time all night. She looked down at the floor, then at the reflection of her own shoes in the mirror. For a second, something crossed her face that had nothing to do with embarrassment. It was grief, maybe, or memory, the kind that arrives without warning and pulls a person backward. Ethan noticed only the missed step. Claire, do you want to sit out? She looked up. No, she said softly. I'm okay. But she did not move immediately. She closed her eyes and took one slow breath. In that breath, the studio disappeared for her. For one heartbeat, she was not in a Chicago class full of strangers. She was in a theater wing years earlier, listening to stagehands whisper over headsets while warm light spilled beneath a curtain. She could feel a hand squeeze hers before she went on, a familiar voice telling her, just breathe before the first count. The floor will remember you. Then the memory was gone. Claire opened her eyes. The music started again. This time she caught the first count not with effort, but with surrender. Her foot slid into place. Her body followed. The phrase still remained restrained, still half-hidden, but the hesitation had vanished. The movement passed through her like something unlocked. Marisol stopped pretending not to stare. Ethan stepped back from the front of the room, his expression narrowing as the phrase ended. He had seen the slip. He had also seen the recovery. Recovery told him more than perfection ever could. Vanessa felt the room's attention shift by a fraction, and that fraction irritated her more than any insult. "All right," Ethan said. "Partner timing next." Groans moved through the studio. Dancers turned toward friends, choosing partners quickly. Vanessa paired with Marcus, one of the strongest men in the class, before anyone could ask him. Claire stood alone near the back mirror. Nobody approached her. The silence around her became awkward. Ethan exhaled through his nose. "Claire, you can sit this round out." "I can do it," she said. "It moves fast." "I understand." Vanessa tilted her head. "Maybe let her try, Ethan. We should be inclusive." It sounded generous. It was not. Ethan looked from Vanessa to Claire, then motioned toward the center. "Fine. Pair with me for the demo." The dancers moved aside. Vanessa crossed her arms, ready to enjoy whatever happened next. Ethan stood opposite Claire. Up close, he noticed things he had missed before. The faint calluses along her fingers, the way her weight stayed centered even while resting, the way she measured distance without glancing down. She was not nervous. That bothered him because he had assumed she should be. "The first hand change is on 4, he said. "Do not anticipate." Claire nodded. The music began. Ethan stepped forward, expecting her to lag. She did not. Her timing was quiet but exact. She met his movement without grabbing for balance. When he shifted direction, she followed the change before he fully signaled it, not guessing, simply reading. Her steps remained small, but each one made sense. The partnership that should have looked like a teacher guiding a new student began to look, for brief flashes, like two professionals negotiating space. Conversations faded along the wall. Ethan tested her with a slightly sharper transition. Claire absorbed it cleanly. His eyes changed. Vanessa saw that change and looked away. When the sequence ended, nobody clapped. The room was too busy trying to understand what had just happened. Marisol finally spoke from the side wall. "You danced before," she said. Claire picked up her water bottle. "A long time ago." Vanessa laughed lightly, but there was a strain in it now. Everyone danced before. That's why they come to class. Claire took a sip of water and did not answer. Ethan looked at his tablet, though he was no longer reading it. "Final section," he said. "Competition level. Full musicality." The words brought Vanessa back to life. This was her territory. Speed, intensity, attention. She stepped closer to the center before Ethan even asked. Ethan tapped the tablet and let a new track load through the speakers. The first notes were darker and more complex than the previous combinations, with a rhythm that shifted under the dancers instead of carrying them. He demonstrated the phrase once, a low turn, a quick rise, a pause on count 4, then a diagonal travel that demanded both attack and softness. It was beautiful when done well and ugly when forced. "Vanessa," Ethan said. "First run." She smiled as if the room had finally returned to its natural order. The music struck hard. Vanessa attacked the choreography with everything she knew how to use. Sharp arms, powerful legs, dramatic focus, eyes aimed at her own reflection. She was good. No one could deny that. Her turns were fast. Her extensions clean. She finished with a strong pose and a breathless smile. A few dancers clapped. Marcus muttered, "That was insane." Vanessa looked toward Claire with false casualness. "Your turn." Ethan hesitated. "Claire doesn't need to do this one." "I thought she wanted to keep up," Vanessa said. The challenge sat in the middle of the room. Everyone saw it. Claire stood by her bag, one hand still on the strap. For the first time that evening, she looked tired. Not physically tired. Tired in the way a person becomes when the world keeps asking them to prove things they buried years ago. Then she stepped forward. No drama. No raised chin. No performance before the performance. Just footsteps on hardwood. Ethan lowered his voice when she reached him. "You can mark it." Claire shook her head. "That's okay." Marisol went very still. Something in that answer, in that softness, moved a memory inside her. A voice from an old backstage hallway. A young dancer in Seattle thanking the lighting crew before taking first place. A name she had not thought about in years. Claire stood at center floor. The music restarted. On the first count, she missed it. Not fully, not embarrassingly, but enough. Her breath came a fraction late, and her right foot landed just behind the beat. Vanessa's face almost brightened. A few dancers exchanged looks that said the spell had broken. Claire stopped. The music continued for half a measure without her. Nobody spoke. She closed her eyes. Her fingers curled once at her side, then released. She took one deep breath, and the room seemed to lean toward her without meaning to. The rain softened against the windows. The lights hummed overhead. Somewhere beneath the music, Claire found something older than fear. She entered on the next count, and everything changed. The movement did not explode outward. It deepened. Her body folded into the rhythm as if she had fallen through the surface of the song and found its current underneath. The low turn opened with quiet control. The rise came not like a trick, but like breath, returning to a chest. Then she reached count 4. She stopped. The pause was impossible. It was not simply stillness. It was suspension. Her whole body seemed to hang in the space between sound and silence, balanced on a thread so fine that several dancers held their breath without noticing. Then she moved again, and the diagonal phrase traveled across the floor with such clean musicality that Ethan's hand slowly lowered from the tablet. He knew that pause. Not from this studio. Not from any class he taught. From old Hartwell Company recordings he had studied when he was younger, back when he believed mastery meant discovering a technique no one else could make look human. Hartwell dancers were famous for that fourth count suspension, a stop that never looked frozen because the breath kept moving inside it. Most dancers copied the shape. Very few understood the living part. Claire did. Ethan stepped closer without meaning to. When the final turn arrived, Claire did not force height or speed. She gave the movement only what it needed. That restraint made it devastating. She landed softly, one foot sliding into stillness, arms lowered at her sides, eyes open but distant. The music ended. Silence filled the studio. Not the silence that follows confusion. The silence that follows recognition. Ethan stared at her. "The stop on 4, he said quietly. Claire looked at him. He took one step forward. "That's suspension. That's Hartwell technique." Vanessa frowned. "What are you talking about?" Ethan ignored her. His eyes stayed on Claire. "Nobody teaches it that clean anymore. Not unless they trained inside the company." His voice lowered. "Where did you learn that?" Claire's answer was almost too soft. "I was there." The room shifted. Marisol covered her mouth with one hand. Her eyes filled before she spoke. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Claire Bennett." Several dancers turned toward her. Vanessa looked irritated now, but uncertain. Who was Claire Bennett? Marisol stared at Vanessa as if the question itself belonged to another world. "You don't know?" Claire lowered her gaze, clearly wishing the moment would pass. Ethan's face had changed completely. He was no longer looking at a new student. He was looking at a piece of dance history, standing in worn shoes and a gray sweatshirt. "Claire Bennett," he said slowly. "Hartwell Company. Seattle Nationals. Chicago Showcase." He stopped, as if the pieces were arriving faster than he could speak them. "You disappeared." Claire gave a faint smile that did not reach her eyes. Life changed. Nobody laughed. Nobody even moved. The younger dancers looked between Ethan, Marisol, and Claire, trying to understand the weight of a name they had never properly learned. Some of them had seen old clips without knowing who they were watching. Some had copied phrases built from choreography Claire once helped make famous. They had studied pieces of her without knowing her face. Vanessa stared at Claire as if the floor had shifted beneath her. "That can't be right," she said, but her voice had lost its edge. Ethan spoke without looking away from Claire. "Hartwell's suspension phrase is still used in advanced workshops. People teach a version of it everywhere." He shook his head once. But that was not a version. Claire touched the strap of her sweatshirt sleeve, uncomfortable beneath the attention. "I just came for class," she said. The sentence landed gently, and because it was gentle, it hurt. Ethan's expression tightened with shame. "I asked if you were in the right room." Claire looked at him kindly. "You were protecting your class." That made it worse somehow. Vanessa lowered her eyes. The room suddenly remembered everything. The smiles. The whispers. The polished little insults disguised as concern. The way they had washed Claire's clothes before watching her move. The way they had decided what she was before asking who she was. Marisol stepped closer. "I saw you dance once," she said. "Years ago. At the Chicago Showcase." Claire's face changed. Only slightly, but enough. Marisol noticed and stopped. Ethan noticed too. "That was your last season, wasn't it?" Claire nodded. For a moment, the rain against the windows became the loudest sound in the room. "My husband got sick a few months later," Claire said. No one had expected her to answer. The quiet honesty of it left the studio exposed. "I stopped touring to be home with him." She looked toward the mirror, not at her reflection, but somewhere beyond it. After he passed, I tried to come back a few times. It never felt the same. Her voice did not break. That made the sadness heavier. The dancers along the wall looked down, one by one. Vanessa seemed to shrink inside her expensive jacket. Claire gave a small breath that was almost a laugh. Then years pass. Your shoes get old. Your body changes. Rooms start looking at you differently before you even reach the floor. No accusation. No bitterness. Just truth. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. Claire, I'm sorry. You don't have to be, she said. But he did. They all did. Vanessa stepped forward, then stopped. For the first time all night, she did not know how to perform herself. Without confidence, without attention, without someone beneath her, she looked very young. I didn't know, she said. Claire turned toward her. Vanessa swallowed. I thought. She could not finish the sentence because finishing it would expose how small it was. Claire waited. I thought you didn't belong here, Vanessa said at last. The words sounded ugly when stripped of their decoration. Claire studied her for a quiet moment. Most people decide that quickly when someone doesn't arrive the way they expect. Vanessa looked down. The room absorbed the sentence. Nobody defended her. Nobody defended themselves. Ethan walked to the sound system and looked at the tracks still glowing on his tablet. He hesitated before turning back. Would you mind dancing it once more? He asked. This time his voice carried no challenge. No doubt. Only respect. Claire almost said no. Everyone could see it. Her hand tightened around the strap of her old bag, and her eyes moved briefly toward the door. She had already given them more than she meant to. Then Marisol spoke softly. Please. Not like a fan. Like someone asking to remember something beautiful correctly. Claire looked at her, then at the floor. After a moment, she set down her bag. The dancers moved aside without being told. No one reached for a phone. No one whispered. The room that had mocked her now held itself carefully, as if a careless sound might break something sacred. Claire returned to center. Ethan restarted the music. This time she did not miss the first count. She entered with a softness that made the entire phrase feel newly written. When Vanessa danced it, the choreography had looked impressive. When Claire danced it, it looked inevitable. She did not attack the music. She listened until the music revealed where it wanted her to go. Her steps were not larger than anyone else's. Her extensions were not desperate for height. But every movement contained intention, and intention pulled the room closer than spectacle ever could. The dancers watched as the gray sweatshirt became irrelevant. The old shoes became irrelevant. Age became irrelevant. Everything they had used to judge her fell away because none of it could survive the evidence of her movement. Claire crossed the floor, turning through the dim reflection of Chicago rain in the windows. The fourth count suspension arrived again, and this time the room felt ready for it, though readiness did not soften its impact. She stopped in a line so alive that stillness seemed to breathe with her. Then she moved on, and the final phrase unfolded like a memory, choosing to become present again. Vanessa's arms slowly fell from across her chest. She had spent years confusing attention with respect. She had learned how to dominate a room, how to stand where people would look, how to sharpen herself until admiration became almost automatic. But watching Claire, she understood something she did not want to understand. Real mastery did not ask the room for permission. It did not need to humiliate anyone. It did not even need to announce itself. It simply existed, and everything false around it became visible. Claire finished with one calm step forward and lowered her arms. The music faded. For several seconds, no one moved. Then Marisol began clapping. Not loudly. Just once, then again, her eyes wet. Ethan joined her. A few dancers followed, hesitant at first, then more fully. The applause filled the studio, not wild or performative, but grateful. Claire looked almost embarrassed by it. She gave a small nod and stepped back. Ethan exhaled, shaking his head with a faint, humbled smile. I spent the last 2 hours trying to teach you. A few nervous laughs moved through the room. Claire smiled gently. You were teaching everyone. The answer cut through the room with more grace than any insult could have. Vanessa felt it most. Claire could have embarrassed her. She could have repeated every cruel comment. She could have let the class turn its laughter in the other direction. Instead, she gave Ethan dignity, and somehow that made Vanessa's behavior look even smaller. A younger dancer near the wall raised her hand slightly, as if still in school. Why come back now? She asked. Claire looked at the floor, then at the windows. Outside, the rain had softened into mist. Because I missed dancing, she said. The simplicity of the answer settled over them. No comeback speech. No dramatic confession. Just a woman who had lost something, survived, and found her way back into a room that almost pushed her out before she had taken a full step. Ethan nodded slowly. Would you consider teaching here sometime? Claire's eyes widened faintly. I'm not looking for attention. That may be why you deserve it, Ethan said. She smiled, but did not answer. The class was nearly over, though nobody wanted to be the first to leave. People gathered their towels quietly. Shoes scuffed softly against the floor. The same mirrors that had amplified their arrogance now reflected their discomfort back at them. Vanessa stood alone near the center. Her reflection looked unfamiliar. Earlier, confidence had made her feel taller. Now honesty made her feel exposed. She finally walked toward Claire. Every conversation stopped, though nobody meant to make it obvious. Vanessa stopped a few feet away. Her voice, when it came, was stripped of polish. I owe you an apology. Claire looked at her, calm and open. Vanessa pressed her lips together. A real one. Not the kind people say because everyone is watching. Claire waited. I judged you the second you walked in, Vanessa said. I acted like I was trying to help, but I wasn't. I wanted everyone to know I thought you didn't belong. She glanced toward the floor. That was cruel. The room was silent. Vanessa took a breath. And embarrassing. For me. Claire's expression softened. For a moment, the old version of the story could have taken over. Claire could have delivered a perfect line about talent, character, humility, and respect. She could have turned her pain into a lesson and made everyone stand still beneath it. Instead, she adjusted the strap of her gym bag over her shoulder. The music tonight was beautiful, she said. Vanessa looked up, surprised. Claire smiled warmly. Good choice. No one knew what to do with that kindness. It did not excuse anything. It did not erase what happened, but it refused to make cruelty the final note of the evening. Claire glanced around the room. See you next week, maybe. The maybe made several dancers smile before they could stop themselves. She walked toward the door. Vanessa stepped aside. As Claire passed, the younger dancers made space for her differently than before. Not because she was famous. Not because Ethan had recognized her. Because they had finally seen her. The person. The history. The grief. The restraint. The grace. At the door, Claire paused long enough to pull her coat from the hook. Rain blurred the lights beyond the glass. She slipped one arm into the sleeve, then the other, moving slowly as if returning from someplace far away. Ethan called after her. Claire. She turned. He seemed to search for something worthy to say and found nothing large enough. Finally, he settled on the truth. Thank you for coming in. Claire nodded once. Thank you for keeping the floor warm. Then she opened the door and left. The studio remained still after the elevator doors closed. No one rushed to fill the silence. The room had been loud when it felt superior. Now, with superiority gone, even breathing seemed careful. Vanessa stared at the empty doorway. Marisol wiped beneath one eye and laughed softly at herself. I can't believe that just happened. Ethan looked at the center of the floor where Claire had stood. Neither can I. One of the younger dancers whispered. I laughed at her shoes. Nobody answered, because almost everyone had laughed at something. Ethan turned off the music. The sudden quiet made the rain more present. Next week, he said, new rule. The dancers looked at him. No one decides who belongs here before they move. It was not a speech. It was not dramatic. But it landed. Vanessa nodded without looking up. Over the next few days, the story moved through the studio in fragments. Not as a viral clip, because no one had recorded it. That became part of its power. It existed only in memory, told carefully between dancers, instructors, and friends who still knew the name Claire Bennett. Some younger students searched old Hartwell Company footage late at night and found grainy videos of a woman moving through light with impossible control. They watched the fourth count suspension again and again, realizing that the quiet woman in the gray sweatshirt had once shaped the very language they were trying to learn. But the bigger change happened inside Ethan's studio. It was subtle at first. People stopped smirking when someone entered late wearing the wrong clothes. Dancers made room at the bar without being asked. When a new student missed a count, no one laughed loudly enough to make the mistake permanent. Ethan corrected just as sharply as before, but the room around his corrections grew kinder. Vanessa changed most visibly because everyone expected her not to. She still danced beautifully. She still loved the center more than she wanted to admit. But she no longer used attention like a weapon. When younger dancers looked to her before deciding how to treat someone, she became careful with what she gave them to copy. 2 weeks later, on another rainy Thursday evening, Vanessa arrived early and found a woman standing near the back wall with a worn canvas bag hugged against her side. The woman looked maybe 50, maybe older, nervous in a way that made her seem ready to apologize for taking up space. For a split second, Vanessa saw the old instinct rise inside herself. Wrong shoes. Wrong clothes. Wrong room. Then she remembered Claire closing her eyes after missing half a count. She remembered the breath before the music found her. She remembered kindness offered when punishment would have been easier. Vanessa walked over. "First class?" she asked. The woman nodded quickly. "I think I might be in the wrong place." Vanessa smiled. Not the polished smile from before. A smaller one. "Realer, you can stand next to me," she said. "Ethan moves fast, but I'll help you catch the counts." Across the room, Ethan saw it happen. He did not praise her. He did not need to. Vanessa was not performing the moment for him. That was how he knew it mattered. The class began. Rain slid down the windows. The hardwood floor reflected the lights. The mirrors watched everything, as mirrors always do, but the room had learned to watch differently. Claire did return the following week. She arrived quietly, carrying the same old gym bag and wearing the same worn shoes. This time, nobody laughed. No one rushed her with admiration either, and that seemed to please her more. Marisol smiled from the side wall. Ethan nodded with respect. Vanessa moved her own bag to make space near the center, then stepped back without making a show of it. Claire noticed. A small warmth entered her face. The music began, and for a while she was simply another dancer in the room. Not a legend. Not a lesson. Not a woman underestimated and revealed. Just a person moving through grief, memory, and rhythm beneath the Chicago rain. And maybe that was the real dignity of it. Not that she proved them wrong. Not that they finally recognized her name. But that she returned without needing the room to suffer for what it had been. Some people enter rooms loudly, demanding respect before they have earned it. Others arrive quietly, carrying whole histories in faded bags, and wait for the floor to speak. Claire Bennett had done more than remind a studio what greatness looked like. She had reminded them what grace could do. Long after class ended that night, after the dancers left and the lights dimmed over the empty hardwood floor, Ethan stood alone by the mirrors and looked toward the place where Claire had danced. The city glowed beyond the rain-streaked windows. The room was silent now, but not empty. Something had changed there, and it had started with a woman everyone thought they understood before the music even began.